Barrett, still a lot of penalties on this offensive team. 9 penalties, 75 yards. Offensive line still making some maybe unfocused plays, getting called for illegal procedure, moving a little bit early. Your evaluation of the offensive line?
Well, I thought overall, I'll start with the good. I think I was encouraged overall. I think the unit that we had out there made fewer mistakes than maybe we have in the past as far as, I'm not talking about procedure penalties, I'm talking about overall. Obviously, we had a huge mistake with the sack fumble touchdown. You never want that to happen. That was clearly a miscommunication up front. But I thought overall, we made some changes, obviously, with Alphonse Taylor coming back, moving him to right guard, and Pierce Walker back to left guard. Seemed like it was a more experienced group and with less mental errors. So I think it seemed to me that we kind of found our identity not only as an offensive line, but as an offense there in the second half with some of those quarterback runs and running the ball well, and our yards per carry numbers were really good. So that was the encouraging part. I think, obviously, there are still too many mistakes, and particularly those procedure penalties. We put ourselves in a lot of negative situations, a lot of 1st and 15s, and it just seemed kind of like we were on the same page with the snap count all night. And, we're kind of doing this new little clap snap count where the quarterback, claps and the guys hear it, and kind of it's a timing thing. But it seemed to me that we really weren't on the same page with that. So I don't know if that's something to address or maybe go back to more of a head bob system. But I'm not really sure what was going on with that. But it seemed, especially in the first half, like guys looked a little bit confused and kind of had their hands up, like they weren't really sure exactly what the deal was.
Okay, I know you didn't miss many blocks here at Alabama, but when you miss one that gets your quarterback as far as clean the way that Jalen Hurt got knocked, what do you say to the guy when you go to the sidelines? My bad? I mean, what do you tell him after you look at that big league hit?
Yeah, no, I think I did do that one time that I remember. Not that I whipped a guy, but that I did, miss a call and a guy came free and sacked the quarterback, and it's definitely a terrible feeling. And you obviously just pick them up and you say my bad, but you really have to have a short memory with those kind of things, because what you see with a lot of O-line and really a lot of football players in general is compounding those mistakes and turning one mistake into another. But I think the guy whose fault it was, he really seemed to kind of come back and play well the rest of the game and not let it affect him going on. So that's really, really hard to do. It's much easier said than done when you make a mistake like that. You feel bad. You feel bad for your quarterback. You feel like you let your team down. But you got to just put it in the back of your memory and wipe it away, because as we saw, there was a lot of football left, and thankfully we saved our best football in the unit until the second half.
Did you think it was a targeting call? I mean, did you think it was targeting?
I personally did not, honestly, and trying to be as objective as I can. I didn't think it was a targeting call. I thought it was, his head definitely shot back, but to me it looked like the initial contact came in the chest. I know Gary Danielson would disagree with me on that, but when I first saw it, obviously it was a vicious hit, but to me it didn't seem like a targeting call to me. But it's obviously very close. It was up for interpretation, but I think of forcible contact to the head or neck area. Obviously, that's what it says. But to me, it was more just to the upper chest area. I don't know. That was my take on it. What do you think, Ryan?
I'm Bama biased, man. I've been throwing the SEC officials under the bus over here. I mean, I just think that it wasn't one of their best performances. Okay, I mean they pulled.
I'll tell you what, the second call was blatant. I'm not really sure how they missed. I mean, obviously they called, the unnecessary roughness, but to miss the fact that it was when he was on the 15-yard line, I can't comprehend, how they could get the wires that cross. It wasn't like it was as he was crossing the goal line. He was well outside the end zone. So that was the one that was more befuddling to me than the hit itself.
Well, and I'll tell you another one that really sort of puzzled me a little bit was Chad Kelly laying on his back. I mean, the ball is in his arms. He's laying on his back, and then the ball comes out. They jump on it, and they call it a touchdown. Thankfully, there's instant replay where they're able to go back and take another look at it and go, no, he's clearly down. I just thought and we had a caller that called in earlier, and it really made sense. He said, we talk about the players playing more plays. How about the officials officiating more plays? A hot day in the South, We're running more
I don't
plays.
buy that, Ryan. I think they're fine on conditioning. It's not that exhausting. I think what you saw there and what you see in a lot of these situations is they're being coached. When in doubt, let it play out, especially on those hit or miss plays like that. And so I think that's what we saw. And obviously, it's kind of slowing the game down a little bit with all these letting it play out plays, because obviously, when it's close at all, they want to let the result of the ball play out. And I think that's what we saw there. I think they're a little bit wary, particularly on fumble calls, to call anything down because they want to let it play out. So I'm not sure I agree with that maybe coaching point, but I think that's how they're being instructed to do it. But I agree with you. Overall, it was not their best game.
I want to go back to Nick Saban following that game. Barrett, just from the way that I was able to read Nick Saban post-game, not only on the field but in the press room, it just seemed like he was very excited, not at like a national championship, but I mean, compared to Nick Saban, normal, typical Nick Saban, you could see that he was showing a little bit of emotions, that he was excited for his players to get that win.
I agree. He was definitely excited, and to have a win like that against a quality opponent like Ole Miss, down 24-3, it says a lot about your football team, and particularly this team where we have some young guys in some important roles. I think he understood that this was kind of a revealing of the character and the quality of a football team. And so I think that's probably what made him more excited than anything, was just the way we fought. I'm sure that once he addresses the team, there will be a 1-minute congratulatory soliloquy, and then he will quickly move on to the correction part, because there was a lot of things that need to be corrected, obviously. So I think he loved the heart and the grit of our teams, and that's something that has obviously been kind of our calling card a little bit these past few years. It's kind of been that grit and that ability to make big plays in big situations. So I think it was awesome to see, and like I said, particularly with the way some of the young guys stepped up and made plays, and we're starting to kind of find out who this football team is. And I said that earlier. I just really felt like you really can't figure out your identity until it's sort of tested by fire. And I felt like we really tested it by fire, and I'm hoping that we kind of came away with an identity of who this football team is going to be, and they obviously have a chance to be really good.
Have you ever seen an axe on the sidelines?
That was pretty bizarre to me. I'm not. I was meaning to ask you on the show. I'm familiar with the belt. I'm not familiar with the axe. What is the axe?
Well, it's a wide receiver terminology. I think it means assassins. Is what they now. I mean, they do all sorts of
what? Say again.
Assassins is what they do. So, but now I tweeted last night. I went back through my photos and I found last SEC championship game in Atlanta. They had a sledgehammer. I mean, there was a sledgehammer. I saw it. I took photos of it. And then Ardarius Stewart had it post-game in the locker room, and I said, all right, let me take a photo of this. What is it? And so I put it out last night on Twitter, and he responded back, and he said, that's next. Hey, whatever gets him motivated, man. I mean,
I've talked about this before. I think it's just funny and impressive how Coach Saban just kind of continues to adapt. And he is, I can tell you at his heart of heart, probably not a props guy. He's not a guy, that relies on hype much, but I think he's kind of seen that the players get excited about this kind of stuff, and it's important to him. And obviously, the belt, has kind of become a big, important thing in the defense. You saw Jonathan Allen hold the belt over his head after he returned that touchdown interception. And so, it's obviously something that's important to the players, and he understands that. And so I guess, he's working on some more props to his game.
I mean, what's going through your guy, as far as through your mind, big guy getting a touchdown? I mean, are you chanting run, run, run? I mean, as far as Jonathan Allen going down the sidelines with the ball in his hands?
I'm chanting. I did not like the demeanor of the trail players. I was yelling at those guys that they were celebrating a little too early, get their head on a swivel, and sure enough, because I saw that guy approaching, and I wanted them to turn around and block him, but thankfully, Jonathan Allen's ball security was pretty good, and it wasn't an issue. So I was nervous until he crossed the goal line. But our whole, I tell you what, the Den and the Jones household came out and glued when we saw that, because we were all running around high-fiving. It was a lot of fun. It was a high-stress game, it really was. And I've told people I kind of prefer the blowout games, but that one was a lot of fun in hindsight. But during it, it was pretty stressful. But that was a fun time to be an Alabama fan and to get to watch that part of the game, because you kind of knew, we thought at least the game was over. It turns out it might not have been, but we thought at least the game was over at that point. So that was a lot of fun.
We're talking to Barrett Jones right now. It's presented by MedCenter Urgent Care Family Medicine, Tuscaloosa, Northport, Fayette, Demopolis, and Hoover, Alabama, as we continue our conversation. Over the years that you and I have had a chance to feature you here on the program and talk some Alabama football, I sort of go back to Barrett Jones. I got to give some credit back to you for this. When you look at Kent State, Alabama's really not playing Kent State. They're playing Alabama. In these next two games, it's all about getting better because road trips await. Arkansas and then also back to Knoxville for Tennessee. Alabama needs to use these next two games to focus on Alabama and look to improve.
No doubt. They've got a tough little stretch coming up after this, after these maybe next 2 weeks, and definitely need to improve and to build on what they did. And I just want to touch on one more thing about the offensive line.
Okay.
The thing that impressed me most about them was that last drive of the game. I know they had some problems and maybe didn't play as well, but the last drive of the game, when they understood that our defense had given up some big plays, we really didn't want them to get the ball back. Those 2 first downs they got at the end are so huge, and I think that really gives an offensive line a lot of confidence to know that in a 4-minute situation, when you need to end the game by taking a knee and not give the ball back to the other team, that you can get those 2 big first downs. So I think that was huge, really. I mean, I can't emphasize how important that is for unity and for guys to kind of build on, and I hope they build on that and go into this next game are much cleaner, much crisper, because when you kind of have to start to have that belief among 5 guys that you can be a really good unit together, something really special can happen. So we've seen it, I think, with a lot of the past offensive lines. Not people forget that a lot of our really good offensive lines we've had in the past did not start out that way at the beginning of the year. So that's what I'll be looking for. I'll be looking in this next game to see if we can build on that. And I know it's a lesser opponent, but I want to see the communication cleaner, the penalties go down, and start to kind of come together as a group.